Hey everyone, and welcome to Miss Meredith Made. You are here because you have already started your TPT journey, or you are interested in starting Teachers Pay Teachers and curious about the behind the scenes action and what it takes to actually start a store and be a successful seller. I received a question very recently, which I thought was an amazing question about what I spent my first year selling on TPT to actually made what I made. So a lot of people have seen my 2024 income report video about what I made throughout all 12 months of 2024. If you have not seen that, be sure to check it out. But essentially in 2024, when it was all said and done, what actually hit my bank account was $2,612.12. That was, again, my commission, what actually I got paid. My sales were, of course, higher because TPT does take a cut. You are using their service to post your items. My total amount of sales was $3,275.04. Let me double check that that's right. I'm reading from really far away from my computer screen, so give me 1 second. Yes, $3,276.04. Hope I said that right the first time. Anyway, that doesn't even really matter, but I do want to just say that a lot of times I think sellers say their sales and they leave out what actually hit their bank account. And of course, it is always lower than what you are selling because TPT has a right to take a cut. They were the ones that thought of hosting the platform for everyone to be using, and it is so well known that your items get seen on there way before if you were to just post them on your own personal website, because let's be real, nobody really knows who you are when you are first starting out. So I personally don't have any complaints about that. I know a lot of people do, but that's kind of besides the story. What you really need to know is what I made at the end of those 12 months in 2024, which again was $2,612.12. Now, the question was great, asking about, hey, how much did you actually spend in that year? Because I think people are curious, hey, you always hear you have to spend money to make money. And what if you spend so much that you actually are not making anything when it's all said and done? Which honestly is a very real possibility. There are many businesses, many startups that when you get started, you have nothing when it's all said and done because you are spending money at the start before you've made any sales, no matter what business you are starting. So if that's the case, it's actually not that uncommon. Now, I am thankful that it wasn't the case for me. However, I do want to preface and say that this was just for me. I'm sure that there are many sellers that start off, spend a boatload to get started, and they may not make back all that they spent. So, what I actually spent in my first year, and I will literally read it off. I am reading kind of behind me is my computer screen. And I'm just going to go through my Excel spreadsheet, and I do highly recommend if you are starting out or if you are already selling and you haven't done this, absolutely keep track of what you are spending because you should be reporting what you are making for taxes. This is taxable income. Even if you are not making very much, you should be reporting it. So highly recommend getting an accountant, and actually all I gave to my accountant at the end of the year was the spreadsheet that I have, literally just saying my expenses, exactly what I spent, what it was for, and then my sales amount for every month versus my commission amount every month. And that's truthfully all they really needed to do my taxes. So it's good to have anyway. But in early January, I, of course, spent money to just be a premium seller on Teachers Pay Teachers. So to be a premium seller was $59.95. Now, when I started, there was a free version and the premium seller version. And I just thought if I'm going to be putting in the work, I want to get as much out of it as I can. So that's why I put in the upfront amount. Now, from my understanding, there is no longer a free version. There is the basic seller version, which I think is just around $30. It's $29 and some change. And then there's still the premium version, which is still hovering at right about that $60 mark. So I still recommend, if you were curious about it, to get that premium seller version, because you get access to more features, but also you make more on your commissions. It's a higher commissionable percentage. So definitely do that. Again, I have the philosophy like, hey, if I'm the one behind the scenes actually putting in the work, I better be getting something out of it. And at the end of the day, $60 is not that much at all when you are starting a business. So $59.95 was my first expense that I did, and then I just happened to make my first dollar, and it literally was like a buck, okay? But I come from a line of people in my family that have started businesses, have started successful businesses, and it's kind of just a rule of thumb for anyone that has been in the business realm. You have a legal business the moment you make your first dollar. I don't care what anybody else says. There are so many people and sellers on here that don't do that, and they just file taxes through their personal accounts and just say, hey, this is extra income for me, and their taxes handle it, or their accountants handle it that way through taxes. I don't recommend doing it that way at all. I highly recommend having an LLC, being a sole proprietor. There are so many different options actually that you can go down. I like the LLC route because legally it keeps all of my assets separate from my business. So that means that if I were to become in debt through my business, so let's say that I overspent on expenses, way overspent, and didn't make what I needed to make, and let's say, for some reason I owed on my taxes and I couldn't pay it, it would come out of my business and nothing personally would be harmed. If you do not buy a legal business like an LLC, the problem that can happen, and it happens to a lot of people, is if you become in debt or there is a business concern, okay, and somebody comes after you, then your personal assets are at risk. So that means that they can come after your home, your car, any of your savings that you may have. It's terrible. So I always tell people, the moment you make your first dollar, get an LLC or talk with an accountant if you want to go a separate route, but get something legal that helps protect you and your personal assets. I cannot say that clearly enough. So the second thing after my premium membership, because I sold something, was I went to Zen Business. It is really straightforward, and I bought my LLC. Now I will say that it was $298, so close to $300. It is pricey, but I had peace of mind. I was able to sleep like a baby at night when I knew that, hey, if my store ends up being successful, which it did grow a little bit quicker than what I was expecting, and if I made a business error, or if, things happen, right? If anything happened, at least my family, my personal assets would not be at risk. So far it's been $59.95 on premium membership, $298 on Zen Business, and $199 on top of that for my business documents. I had Zen Business file them electronically with the state for me. You can do this by hand, but honestly, I just don't have the background to be doing that. So I thought $199 was worth it, because I probably would have spent weeks trying to figure out how to file that myself. So those were honestly the biggest expenses that I had in 2024, were the premium membership and my LLC. Now, I will tell you that with the LLC, you do have yearly fees to just keep up with maintaining your legal status within your LLC. So keep that in mind. But again, even with those three, and those three were my biggest expenses, I don't care if you end up making $20 in your first year of selling on TPT and you are in the hole from spending on your LLC. It is so worth it if you actually want this to grow. If you want to be the real deal, if you want to actually have a business, you got to do it. So I know that there will be people that, really think that you don't need to, but I have family background experience, personal experience with that, and I highly recommend that you do that. Anyhow, after Zen Business, securing my LLC, I thought, okay, Miss Meredith Made, I really want that to be my business name. I do not want to risk anyone else taking that. So I went onto WordPress and I decided to buy my domain. You can literally buy a domain on WordPress. Mind you that the domain is not your website. It is literally just like reserving your URL. Okay, so you can think about it like a foundation of a house versus the actual house on top. Your domain is literally just that foundation, and then your website would be the house on top. So I went ahead and I bought the foundation, the domain, and the house, the actual service through WordPress to host my website. But you can buy just the foundation, just reserving your URL or your domain for literally, I think it's $13 and some change on WordPress. I spent $48 to get the URL, the domain, and to actually be able to start building my website. This was early, you guys. I bought this in January of 2024. And I just thought, I don't want to risk somebody else named Meredith that comes up with that name, because it's not really hard to come to. I mean, it's alliteration that Miss Meredith made, and I just thought if somebody else happens to land on that, I don't want my store to get big and then somebody else takes it. Because that's the other thing too, is unfortunately, I think sometimes it happens when sellers become big on TPT, and then scammers will check and see if they have a URL, and when they see they don't, they see it as a free ticket to go and rip off their products and post it on a URL that is the store name, because a lot of people would have no way of telling if that's the real person behind that website or not. So just be careful with that. By reserving your domain for the one that's under $15, oh my goodness, you are protecting yourself, and you're also honestly protecting other sellers too, because you want to make sure that it's available and that you're not taking something that is already out there for somebody else. So two-way street there. But anyway, so far it's been $59.95, $298, $199, and for the WordPress and domain, $48. Again, I bought that in January, and I just thought, I'm going to start slowly trying to build this website on WordPress. I have never done web design before. I have never done anything like that. I literally did it from January through the end of 2024 and launched my website at the end of 2024. It took just about all 12 months of the year to do that, and it was a really long time, but it was so worth it. And I honestly just built it by looking at other people's YouTube videos. So don't think that you need to spend an arm and a leg to figure it out. I literally figured it out just by watching other people build WordPress sites on YouTube. I am not saying that mine is luxurious or wonderful by any means, but it gets the job done, and I did it for 48 bucks. So can't really beat that. After that, I got interested in SEO, and I always tell people, you really need to research SEO, because that's search engine optimization, and essentially what that does is it helps you optimize your listings, helps you rank higher in searches, and it's using as many keywords and trending keywords in your titles, descriptions, etc. to make sure that people land on what you're selling. It's really important in this kind of world, whether you are selling on Teachers Pay Teachers like me, or if you are selling on Etsy or anything like that. Honestly, anything, SEO is very important. But I got interested in it, and I stumbled upon this service called Seller Spy. And it is pretty cool, because you'll type in the keywords that you are thinking about using. So let's say you're interested in making like summer writing journal, vacation travel journal, something like that. You can literally just type in a couple of the words like vacation journal, and then it'll tell you on Seller Spy kind of what your competition is, how many of other products out there are out there with those keywords, how popular they are. And you're trying to find something that isn't out there a ton, because you don't want to have a ton of competition, but you also want to make sure it's popular. A lot of times when I'll search things, there's not much competition, but the popularity is low, which you don't want, because you want teachers to be actively searching for it. So anyway, I got really interested in this Seller Spy service, and you can do some of the stuff for free, but I decided they had a level up that you could try for $9.99. It was going to be $9.99 a month. I tried it. I really didn't think it was worth it, so I only paid the $9.99 1 month and then I canceled the subscription. I just didn't think I was getting enough out of it to rationalize doing almost $10 a month on that, because you can do the competition and the popularity search for free anyway, and that's really all I wanted to do. So if you're wondering if you should be paying for that, I don't think you really should, but if you want to try it out, you know, it's your opinion on whether you like it or not, but I think you can do the more important things on there for free. So I did spend $9.99 on that. And then in March, so just a couple months into 2024, we're about 3 months in at this point, I had a handful of products on my storefront. And I think what happens when you first open up, you are just so giddy, like you're just getting your store set up. And I chugged out a lot of products in those 3 months. I'm not saying that they were great. That's probably part of the reason why I was able to get out as many as I did, honestly. But I got out a decent amount on my shelves, probably like 15, 20 within those 3 months. And I just had this gut inkling of feeling like, hey, they're just sitting out here and nobody has any idea who I am. Nobody knows that Miss Meredith Made is out there. You know, maybe I should start shining a light on my products online, on social media. So in March, I got into that realm a little bit and I decided to purchase a tripod ring light. I'm actually using it right now. Essentially, you just literally place your phone up into this holder and then around you is a ring light. And it does just help with the lighting. It also obviously helps so that your hand's free. You can talk a little bit more naturally, but that was $29.99. I literally just got it from Amazon, and that is the only thing that I have really spent as far as marketing materials, just because I think it makes the videos look at least a little bit higher of quality. Again, I am not saying that this is professional by any means. It doesn't look like I'm a videographer over here, but it's at least a little bit better than just, you know, my natural phone quality. But I didn't buy a camera or anything like that. I literally just used my phone that I have. So that was $29.99. And then going with that, I thought I should be sharing my products as well. So I spent $5.57 on a ream of paper to actually print my products out so that I could show them in videos, and $20 on printer ink. So if you don't want to show your face, for about $25, you can start printing off your products. Many of us have phones that you can film on. And I actually started off that way a lot. I would literally just film my products coming out of the printer and then me kind of setting them up. And at the time, I didn't have anything hands-free. I would use one hand, and then in the other, I would try to cut the papers, and it was really difficult to do. So just keep that in mind. But you don't have to spend a lot to get marketing going. Honestly, just having your products visible out there and letting them see the light of day other than on TPT, it's a great idea. So then the only other two things was in November. So later in the year, I decided to pull the trigger on a monthly pro subscription for Canva. So in November, I had that $14.99 a month charge, but it only hit for November and December, of course, because January would have started this year, 2025. So I, in total, spent $700.50 my first year. And honestly, I would say the only things that you really need if you make money during your first year is that LLC and the premium Teachers Pay Teachers subscription. So those are the only things you need, and then the rest were just kind of optional if you want to make your life easier, like the ring light, the ream of paper, things like that, if you're interested in getting marketing going your first year, but you don't have to. I would say definitely if you're seeing some sales going and you know that, okay, I'm already making sales and I can probably make even more if I get this out on social media, I would recommend it. But $700.50, that was my total in 2024 expenses. Now, if we take the $2,612, which was my earnings for 2024, and we subtract that $700, that left me with just about $1,900 in my bank account. I just did rough mental math. I think that's right. But yeah, it left me with about $1,900 in my bank account. And at this point, I was getting a little bit nervous because you always hear save a third for taxes. You usually have to owe a third for taxes. Now, I didn't. I think that there's a certain threshold. You have to make a certain amount of money before you actually owe for your taxes. So I didn't owe anything. I think, quite frankly, just because $1,900 after expenses, they were kind of like, hey, you're not making enough, just keep it type of thing. I don't know. But I was able to keep it, and that was great. Really wonderful after a year of hard work getting that set up, just to be able to see almost $2,000 sitting in my bank account from that. I do not pay myself throughout the year. I literally keep my earnings as a savings account. And then this year I have seen growth enough to where I was able to pay for a week-long vacation, which was wonderful, but we're not talking about 2025, we're talking about 2024. I kept that $1,900 in my bank account, and I am treating it like a savings account. So if you are somebody that you are really hoping, that Teachers Pay Teachers can help you maybe with a monthly payment you have, maybe a car payment, maybe a bill, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Just keep it in mind that you might be better off your first year saving it, because you never know if you are going to owe or not. Every state is different depending on where you are. So I recommend saving it just to see and get a feel of it the first year. And even in my second year this year, I'm saving it as well, as much as I can. Of course I did splurge a little bit on that vacation, but I kind of felt like, hey, I didn't pay myself at all in 2024, so let's go enjoy a little bit of this. But, try to save as much as you can, because you don't know if you will end up owing. Now, the second part of this question was about time that I spent on this. So now you know what I, actually spent money-wise, financially, but what about my time that went into this? This is where it's a little bit tough for me to remember, honestly, in 2024. It started off not much at all, maybe 5 hours a week, because I was only doing product creation. And then it slowly developed into other things. Like, I was starting to work on my website, like I mentioned. I was starting to get into the marketing world, starting to figure out the social media front. I will tell you that towards the end of 2024, definitely, because we're still relatively fresh in 2025, now my schedule is just about 15 hours a week on Miss Meredith Made. Now keep in mind, that is Miss Meredith Made, not just TPT. TPT remains at about 5 hours a week on the product creation, on sending notes to followers, on making sure that I am hosting a sale once a month, making sure that I am switching out my featured products, okay? It doesn't take much just for TPT. The other 10 hours, honestly, is marketing. It is filming, it is editing, it is sending a newsletter, writing my blogs, making sure that I am trying to keep up with my email list, both adding freebies so that people are enticed to come over for my email list, and then sending them emails. All of those things take up so much more time than actual TPT itself. So keep that in mind when you first start. You don't need a ton of time. And especially if you want to ease into it a little bit more than I did, then you can start off really slow and literally just try to do that 5 hours a week. That could literally be an hour a day, Monday through Friday on it. And then you can slowly add things to your plate as you go. And that's exactly what I did, honestly. I think that my trajectory has been a little bit quicker than some other people, but that's just how my personality is and how I go. But I know that not everyone is like that. So keep that in mind. But I would shoot for 5 hours a week on TPT if you were just starting out, and then say, hey, maybe I can increase this, by double, and just do 2 hours a day if you've been used to 1, and already you're at 10 hours. So it adds up quickly when you add things to your plate. I will tell you that right now, especially if you add in the marketing. But I highly recommend doing the marketing because it is so helpful. Just keep in mind that you just want to be visible. You don't need to be going viral and be a huge presence on social media, but it's great to get any extra eyes that you can. Thank you so much to those of you that are asking questions. It gives me ideas of what to post, and I'm sure other people want to hear the answers as well. So if there are any questions, leave them in my comments and I will do my very best to get back with you. Thank you so much, and until next time, happy selling or happy learning of how to get started.